Hey everybody, this is Dory, and this time around I have a cat who's very insistent on sitting in my lap, so we're going to try and do this with a cat in my lap. I'm going to start with the pterodactyl wings, and I'm also going to be going over bat wings, because the pterodactyl wings are a little weird, and I want to make sure I have enough time to go over it. So, let's look at this pterodactyl wing that I've sketched out with the help of the internet. I don't draw pterodactyls, but I know that other people do. Pterodactyls are weird because when they evolved, you can see that you have your humerus and your radius, but you have an extra bone here, which if you look at your arm, it's weird. Their hand up here has lost one finger, and instead of flying with several fingers or large muscles, or like a bird has their fingers are really small now, and they fly mostly with feathers, and bats, their fingers grew really long, and now they have webbing between them. A pterodactyl grew one really, really long finger, and it flies with that one really long finger. It lost one of its fingers, so a pterodactyl only has one, so you have 1, 2, 3, 4 fingers, so it's not going to have a thumb or anything like that. It's going to have these 4. And it has, this would be like your shoulder, and you have 1, 2, 3 bones up through here, so it kind of goes down, back up, and then back out again. I'm not exactly sure why, but it does. And then your finger itself, of course, has 1, 2, 3 bones in it. I watched a video on National Geographic channel, and I was reading a lot, and really we can only speculate how a pterodactyl might have flown. They have theories about like fur on their wings and membranes and like blood vessels, and they think that they might have been warm-blooded. They flew, and they flew somehow. They theorize that when a pterodactyl lands on the ground, that they had a lot of control, and that when they landed, they'd hold their wings up kind of like this, and they'd walk on their little toes. And then we have a little guy here. He's like, "Ha-ha!" Then they got their feet. I can imagine that they're very flexible, that they would have been able to, they would have been able to rotate and move their joints to a certain extent. All the drawings I see of them have them being really tight, angular, and they look awkward to me. And I believe that they would have been a little weird looking to us, but would have flown gracefully. So, when representing a pterodactyl or using a pterodactyl, you have some leniency because we don't exactly know how they fly. If I had to guess, after watching all of those videos, I would assume that this powers most of their flight is up in here with the humerus, and that. And draw the radius, and that when they fly, come over here. That this bone up here is going to be doing a large amount of the work. I can't imagine that this would ever go too high, and that it would probably stay level because they'd probably want to, because they had such wide wingspans. I can imagine that they were mostly gliders, and most of the pterodactyl bones have been found by sediments of large water bases, which means they probably really liked water, and they liked flying around water. Like large oceans, probably lived on cliff sides. I've never met a dinosaur, so you'll have to just go watch stuff and theorize for yourself how you think these gigantic things flew. I mean, I watched that big long documentary and I learned mostly nothing because we don't know very much about pterodactyls. So the best thing you can do is, know the bone layout. So you know that they only have 4 fingers, and that includes the really long ring finger, which takes up the large part of the wing. And then you have your humerus and your radius like you normally would, and then you had the extra bone. So it's they're weird. So if you try to think about it in a few parts, try to think of it like here's the normal part, part 1. We have an extra hand over here, and that's part 2. And then you try to think of it like here's the finger, and that's part 3. Maybe it'd make it easier. I'll have to look at references if I'm ever drawing a pterodactyl, because they're just so funny looking. So, good luck with that if you plan on drawing a pterodactyl. They're just so weird. So we're going to go to something I understand a little better. Bats! Because I've seen bats, and I've watched bats fly, and you can go online and watch bats fly. You can't go online and watch pterodactyl fly. So, bats have their humerus, it's up here, and then their radius. And then for their fingers, they have their thumb, which is out here. And then they have one here, one here, one here, and one here. So they have these really tiny bones in here, which are kind of like a hand, if you want to think of it like a hand. And their thumb sticks up in the air. So if you put your hand out, you can say, okay, I know that they have 1, 2, 3, 4 fingers that take up the wing, and then they have their little thumb that just like grabs onto stuff. So they have this thumb, which is usually connected with a webbing really close to this one. So these are going to come up, and then this one's going to be connected. I think some bat species it isn't, but in a large, a lot of them that I've seen they are. And then you have a finger that comes here, and then this one's going to be the longest. So they're going to go from shortest to longest in this direction for a bat wing. And if you're drawing a dragon, a lot of people use bat-like wings. And what I see sometimes is people will draw, they'll draw their humerus, and then they'll draw the radius, and then they'll have their thumb up here, and then they'll have it very hand-like. Cat. And instead of having it connected, they'll have this up here, and then it'll have its own, and then they'll have this one, and it'll have its own, and then it'll have its own. More like a human hand. Which is fine. If it can, if it can fly, which I could kind of see this flying, this doesn't look very different from this. Slide. The one thing that's going to make any fantasy drawing better is basing everything that isn't real off of something that is. So the more research you do into muscles or bones or wings, the more realistic it's going to feel. And even if it's obviously a dragon and not a bat, using some of the real life features of a bat wing can really bring your wing out. So in dragon wings, I mostly see that the longest one is usually this one, and this one's usually the shortest one. I'm not sure why. I'm pretty sure I've drawn them like that too. It just feels right to draw them like that. Maybe because they've been drawn like that for eons. And, well, probably not eons, but a long time. So, they always say in fantasy books it has wings like a bat, and I guess we take that kind of in a way that says, okay, it's like a bat, but is it a bat? No, no, because dragons don't exist. Shh, go away, silly computer. So that's pretty much, bats are pretty easy, just because it's a hand, and it's pretty hard to mess up a hand. And one thing you want to remember if you're actually drawing a bat is that the bat wing will come down and meet up with his little feetsies down here, so he can fly. So that's something to keep in mind. That the skin will meet up down here, and it won't meet up on like something. I've seen it meet up on his back, and that doesn't make any sense to me. Ah. So yeah, that's a bat wing. It's pretty much a hand, thumb in the air. Pterodactyls only have 4 fingers. They fly with their ring finger. They're weird. I know. Since I don't have any feathers to explain or anything, that's pretty much my tutorial. And the only thing I can say is remember, pterodactyls are weird and they have like a bajillion joints that they don't need. And well, actually, they were the first animals to fly before birds, and except for insects, obviously. But aside from insects, pterodactyls were the first very large creatures to take to the air, and they must have done something right. So after that, we only have the insects, the birds, and the bats. Some fish that can jump really high. And bats, just remember, keep that thumb up. This one's the shortest, and they get progressively longer as you go out. So, that's my tutorial on bats and pterodactyls. Good luck if you're drawing a pterodactyl, and I hope that this tutorial was helpful. My next tutorial will be on drawing these in different styles, either realistic or, your cartoony, and line arting these, and different ways of expressing feathers and webbing and drawing them. After that, I'll move on to the animation of bat wings and bird wings. I'm not sure if I could do pterodactyl wings. I could try. If people want, please let me know. Other than that, favorite, comment, subscribe. Please let me know how I'm doing. I know that I get these out as much as I can, but I only can do it when it's quiet here, and it's kind of busy here. So anyway, let me know how I'm doing. Thanks for watching, guys, and I hope you learned something. Bye!